Hey everyone, welcome back to another weekly rundown. We've just moved through a week of staggering contrasts, one where global peace deals were hammered out in the Swiss villas, while historic monuments were being sabotaged in our own capital. Today, we're diving into the Versailles Accords enforcement and the Swiss breakthrough, where a 60-day roadmap for Iran's denuclearization has finally been established. We'll discuss the vandalism of the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool, involving 300-foot gashes and corrosive chemicals, and the arrests that include a former U.S. Olympian. On the domestic front, we're tracking the high-stakes showdown on Capitol Hill over the Save America Act, where the president is using everything from canceled bill signings to calls for nuking the filibuster to secure the 2026 midterms. We'll also cover a massive $6.5 billion healthcare fraud bust and the Supreme Court's definitive ruling on the end of temporary protected status, reminding the world that temporary means temporary. It's a lot to unpack, so let's get started. We begin on the foreign policy front. While we previously discussed the steel wall blockade, this week brought the performance-based enforcement phase. Vice President J.D. Vance, Jared Kushner, and Steve Witkoff arrived in Switzerland to lead productive negotiations with Iran, mediated by Qatar and Pakistan. The result is a 60-day roadmap for technical talks and finalization, and commitments to free and open transit in the Strait of Hormuz. The team achieved what many thought impossible. Iran has agreed to invite IAEA inspectors back into the country. President Trump has called this nuclear honesty, stating that the highest level inspections will continue indefinitely. The financial pressure has been the key. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has set up an escrow system where unfrozen Iranian funds are used exclusively to buy American farm products, specifically corn, wheat, and soybeans, to feed the hungry people of Iran. Secretary Bessent also issued a temporary 60-day general license authorizing Iranian oil sales under the framework, and a deconfliction mechanism for Lebanon was established, contributing to reduced violence between Israel and Hezbollah. No American tax dollars are going to Tehran. It is a total recycling of their own money back into the U.S. economy. Meanwhile, the steel wall is proving its worth. Record-breaking oil flows are surging through the Strait of Hormuz, 19 million barrels in a single day. This has sent oil prices tumbling towards $70 per barrel, lower than before the conflict began. Despite some late-week ceasefire violations involving Iranian drones, the U.S. military responded with surgical strikes on 10 military targets, sending a clear message: violence will be met with violence. While we are winning abroad, we are facing a true affront to our history at home. The Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool, which was recently beautified as part of a massive D.C. renovation project, has been gruesomely vandalized by what the president calls radical left lunatics. Vandals use knives or box cutters to put a 350-foot-long gash into the new rubber lining of the pool. They also poured corrosive chemicals into the water, used fertilizer to cause the algae to grow uncontrollably, and even chemically carved 8647 into the pool sealant. 6 arrests have been made so far, with one of the individuals caught trying to sabotage the project being a former U.S. Olympian, and another suspect has ties to a major left-wing fundraising network. U.S. Attorney Janine Pirro and the president have made it clear. These cases will be prosecuted to the fullest extent, with 10-year prison sentences on the table for the destruction of national monuments. The National Guard and police increased presence, with surveillance footage being released. Repairs are already beginning, though they will likely require draining the pool once more. Turning to Capitol Hill, the legislative battle over the Save America Act has reached a boiling point. This bill, which requires proof of citizenship and voter ID to vote, is the administration's top priority to ensure we have fair elections in 2026. President Trump took the extraordinary step of canceling a housing bill signing at the Capitol this week, stating he would not move forward on other priorities until the Senate GOP secures the votes for the Save America Act. Behind closed doors, Trump called out Senate Republicans, telling them to nuke the filibuster to codify America First policies into law before the midterms. The resistance from the left is fierce. Chuck Schumer claimed the act would remove 25 million people from voter rolls. A statement Representative Tim Burchett noted effectively admits that millions of ineligible voters are currently on the rolls. Meanwhile, activist judges like Sparkle Suknanen have attempted to block the use of the SAVE database to verify citizenship, prompting calls for their impeachment. Representative Ana Paulina Luna threatened to shut down the House floor by voting no on every bill until the Senate returns from their 2-week recess to do their job. And she also said there's an effort to force the Save America Act onto the National Defense Authorization Act. The U.S. Postmaster General told Congress that the post office will not deliver mail-in ballots in the states who refuse to share citizenship status and voter data with the Trump administration, but the Postmaster General was blocked from doing that by a leftist judge. Scott Presler traveled to South Dakota to attend a GOP event involving Senate Leader John Thune, but despite having a ticket for the event, Presler was denied entry by the sergeant at arms. The sergeant at arms was fired for this, and Chairman Jim Eschenbaum confirmed that Thune asked for Presler not to be allowed in. In response, the South Dakota GOP committee voted to censure Thune. Representative Mary Miller warned that if we don't secure our elections, we'll end up with one-party rule, and the message from the president is clear. Without secure elections, the grand experiment of self-governance is over. In other election integrity news, Colorado Secretary of State Gina Griswold was sued by the RNC for allowing people to vote in elections who have never lived in the state. In our accountability segment, the war on fraud has secured a record-breaking victory. Attorney General Todd Blanche and Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. announced a $6.5 billion healthcare fraud bust, charging over 450 defendants for stealing from Medicare and Medicaid. A significant portion of this fraud is being traced to California, where CMS Administrator Dr. Oz revealed that 80% of recent Medicare payment suspensions originated. One fraudster in California was arrested and charged with stealing $27 million in taxpayer funds in a hospice fraud scheme, and it was discovered that California Governor Gavin Newsom's wife's nonprofit paid her own film company, so now her finances are under investigation. Her nonprofit also received funds from a Native American tribe backed by Newsom. Another massive healthcare fraud ring was busted in Las Vegas, and Secretary Kennedy and Dr. Oz also announced that over 1 million people are on Obamacare with no Social Security number, indicating people are using stolen identities to receive insurance payouts. The Department of Justice moved to force Kentucky, Michigan, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania to turn over their SNAP benefit enrollment list to root out fraud within the program, and the Trump administration blocked $150 million in fraudulent education loans. We also saw the arrest of a $1.2 billion fraudster who fled to the Philippines and a massive crackdown on illegal aliens stealing identities in Massachusetts to claim unemployment benefits. On the border, the Supreme Court handed the Trump administration a series of 6-3 victories. The court upheld the president's ability to turn away asylum seekers before they enter the U.S. and, most significantly, confirmed his authority to end temporary protected status for over 1 million Haitian and Syrian migrants. Border Czar Tom Homan's message was blunt. Temporary means temporary. It is closing time. To lead the next phase of this effort, the president named Lance Schroyer, a former Marine and law enforcement officer, as the new director of ICE. Tom Homan and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis announced Alligator Alcatraz has concluded its deportation operation of nearly 21,000 illegal aliens, and Homan announced 10,000 new immigration agents are now on board. Last for this topic, Congressman Andy Ogles filed the Remigration Act, which would denaturalize migrants retroactively up to a decade if they lied on their forms. Now it's time for the noteworthy tidbits, which are brought to you today by Old Glory. Let me tell you about them quick. Are you looking for a gift for a music lover, or maybe some apparel to show off your quirky side? Old Glory has you covered. With over 300,000 officially licensed items covering music, sports, entertainment, and pop culture, you're guaranteed to find the perfect item. They even have seasonal gear. My husband enjoys the Beatles and Led Zeppelin apparel, and I love the Billy Idol apparel. I even found items for my fellow plant enthusiasts. This family-owned superstore is known for their quality and customer service, offers free standard shipping on all orders, and orders are shipped the same day you purchase. My discount code gives you 15% off your entire order, and it's currently the best deal available. Just visit oldglory.com and enter in my promo code JADE, that's JADE, at checkout. All right, let's get back to the tidbits. Former Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard provided evidence that Dr. Fauci likely lied to Congress, and Senator Rand Paul announced that a subpoena has been issued for Fauci to publicly testify before the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee because Fauci previously agreed to do so, but changed his mind. Bill Pulte officially became the acting director of national intelligence, and he's already reportedly begun firings. The FBI arrested 2 more terror suspects who threatened to carry out mass murder at the UFC Freedom 250. The men were located in Washington and Missouri. The MLB chose not to fine the Giants players that put a Bible verse on their LGBTQ pride caps, and the MLB told Senator Josh Hawley they should not have warned the players, as the players are allowed to express their religious beliefs. President Trump toured Mack trucks in Pennsylvania, where he delivered a speech to workers. The Pentagon killed a senior ISIS leader in Syria as part of ongoing U.S. efforts to disrupt and eliminate terrorists seeking to attack Americans abroad or the U.S. homeland. The U.S. Senate confirmed judicial nominee John Mark to be U.S. District Judge for the Southern District of Texas. America 250 events included successful national mall gatherings with military flyovers, music, and large crowds, and President Trump announced plans for a July 4th celebration with massive air shows and fireworks. The United States and El Salvador sent support, including equipment and supplies, to Venezuela after a fatal earthquake. The Supreme Court struck down Hawaii restrictions on carrying firearms into businesses. President Trump spoke to American farmers on the White House Rose Garden patio, announcing he signed an executive order to accelerate agricultural innovations that give farmers and ranchers necessary resources to ensure American crops are healthy, abundant, and affordable. The Charlie Kirk assassin judge ruled to keep the death penalty on the table for the prosecution against Tyler Robinson. After spending years accusing President Trump of mishandling classified information, John Bolton admitted to violating the Espionage Act by sending top-secret information on a personal account hacked by Iranians. He became a felon by pleading guilty to retaining classified information, and after a $2.2 million fine, he could face years in prison. The FIFA president revealed President Trump will be there to hand the trophy to the World Cup victor. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte revealed that pressure from President Trump caused a surge of over $1 trillion in defense spending across NATO. Elon Musk has reportedly raised over $85 million to Republicans in the 2026 midterms, and George Soros has already flooded $100 million into the Democrats this year. Dominion Voting Systems dropped their $1.5 billion defamation lawsuit against Mike Lindell and MyPillow. In October 2025, Dominion was sold to Liberty Vote, which is owned by former Republican elections director Scott Leindecker. New York City Mayor Mamdani announced the rent is frozen for several million New Yorkers. President Trump threatened a 100% tariff on European countries who put a digital services tax on U.S. companies. The Texas Board of Education voted to have millions of students be taught the Bible in school. Julia Letlow won the Louisiana U.S. Senate Republican primary runoff, defeating John Fleming after also unseating Senator Bill Cassidy. That wraps up our recap of June 20th through June 27th. This week combined diplomatic progress, accountability for lawlessness, and legal victories strengthening sovereignty. Which moment stood out to you the most? Share below, subscribe for next week's update, and don't forget to share this rundown with a friend. Also, hello to my audience from Japan. Thank you for listening and have a great day.